Talking about Big Mac index right now. Now we're going to talk about other issues related to TNC's activities and their global basis, global presence, so to speak. I would like to talk a little bit about some technological things behind the greatest companies. Today, one of the very promising industries in the world is the nano industry. The nanotechnology is going to drive the global technological power, and I think it's going to drive the global growth and productivity in 2020s and 2030s, maybe even beyond. This is a very serious issue because nanotechnology is behind the way we produce semiconductors, is the way we produce chips. And chips are usually today are very important in terms of their use in all sorts of very complex products and very advanced, highly technologically advanced goods. All companies or many companies in the world, many techno companies in the world are trying to be the leaders in this industry, and they are trying to be not only the leaders, but they're also trying to be the largest consumers of this industry. It is very difficult to be a leader in semiconductor industry in producing chips, and because in order to produce the chips you got to be very, very competitive. You got to have lots of brains. You got to have many people working in this industry and billions of dollars in investments. And many people, many industry experts say that today only China has the capacity to produce the most advanced chips and semiconductors in the world. Not exactly China, but like I said, Taiwanese company TSMC, Taiwanese Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, is the largest producer of semiconductors in the world. This is a highly advanced company. It produces equipment for companies such as Apple, and it is a very competitive company in terms of making global supply chains possible. It is supplying companies all across the world with semiconductors and chips that are going to be part of products from each and every industry in the world. It is these products are used in artificial intelligence. It is used in car manufacturing. It is used everywhere in computers. We just cannot think the world without that sort of products today. You see that the number of these semiconductor firms is very, very small. Like I said, the largest company is TSMC, and then goes Samsung Electronics, Nvidia, Intel, and other companies. And what we see here is that the market capitalization of these companies is really, really on the rise. It's growing in value. But also what we see is a sort of a reverse dynamic in terms of the number of these companies. In 2001, there were almost 30 companies that produced leading-edge processor manufacturing products. Almost 30 companies. Today, there are less than 5. That means that this industry is characterized of really intensive competition. Companies are just trying to outpace each other in producing more competitive products, highly advanced technological products, and they are becoming more like monopolies. They are growing larger and larger. They're building more factories, and their capacity to produce high-tech goods is really limited to a very few companies in the world. And like I said, they are not so many companies, and their market capitalization is growing into trillions of US dollars. This is also one of the most important dynamics in the past years. The market capitalization of the world's listed semiconductor firms exceeds $4 trillion. And this is an all-time record. This industry lives in a sort of a competitive advantage given by the law of Moore, which says that the capacity of a semiconductor to keep pace with increasing data contained in it is increasing each 2 to 3 years. This law is going to be less valid these days, and the number of years that it takes to produce, to implement the same amount of the same amount of electronic equipment into it is going to grow from 3 years maybe to 4 years and 5 years. So this competitive advantage is going to really get devalued in the 2020s and in the 2030s. That's going to be for sure. The capacity to produce more and more sophisticated chips and semiconductors is going to be limited by companies such as TSMC, Samsung Electronics, Nvidia, and Intel. Intel is, I think that Intel is one of the one of the famous companies in the world in making chips, but this company is in a few years time, this company is going to exit this market and try to do something else, because it can no longer compete with rivals from Asia. It has not such a capacity, and also it does not have people who would agree to work for less pay, for fewer wages, like Chinese do, or Indian IT guys do, or South Koreans actually. So this is the problem, and companies such as Intel and Nvidia going to exit this market, and there will be time when only just 2 companies will be in the list of the biggest nanotechnological transnational corporations. What I also would like to say, I would like to say a couple of words about automotive companies. Automobile industry has always been a sort of a driver of economic growth. in many countries of the world. Just to name a few countries such as the United States and Germany, or Japan. These countries are the largest and the most successful automobile companies are located in these three countries, plus maybe France and Great Britain. But the thing is that the automobile industry is so intertwined, it has so many mergers and acquisitions in it, that the structure of the international capital and international investor bases is changing from year to year. For example, just recently, in February, in early February, the Daimler Corporation that produces Mercedes decided to split its two subsidiaries, its two major divisions, Daimler Trucks and Mercedes-Benz. So one part of the company is going to produce only trucks, and the other part of the company is going to be more focused on civil cars, on the civic kind of brands. This is the reason they did it is because the automobile industry today is under great strain on part of the global change effects, and companies such as Tesla are great revolutionaries in the market. They're bringing more electro cars to the market, and their capitalization is growing really high. If we look on charts about selected car makers with market capitalization, you see that the market capitalization of Tesla company is so large that it equals to the combined market capitalizations of Daimler, Volkswagen, General Motors, Toyota, and Hyundai taken together. So this small company, it is really small, both in terms of its size and in terms of its manufacturing capacity. It produces much less cars than Daimler and company and all the other great automobile manufacturers, but its market capitalization outpaced them all. And the strategy of many traditional companies today is to sort of split their businesses, to try to concentrate on new technologies and try to develop their own cars, electro cars. And Mercedes Daimler company decided to do just that. This news led to the stock price, the share price of Daimler company grow in value, and that was a huge success of the company in terms of attracting more investor bases, in terms of attracting more capital. It attracted billions of dollars by just introducing this sort of reorganization and restructuring at the corporate level. The oil industry and car manufacturing are very intertwined, and in the very recent years we're going to see more people buying electric cars, and there will be less fuel cars, fuel-driven cars with internal combustion engines, because, well, economies are growing more concerned about global climate change, and they are very serious about this particular issue, about the decarbonization activities. You can also see that to produce an electric car today does not cost really much. Does not really cost so much as it did in 2015, for example. Operating margins of Tesla in 2015 was not really big, and traditional car makers were leaders in that sort of measures. But in 2019, 2020, Tesla started really getting closer in terms of operating margins to the traditional companies, and in some of the cases it really outpaced them. It outpaced Daimler, it outpaced General Motors and Volkswagen company. I think the only company that is still doing better is Toyota. But we know that Japan is very famous for its cost-cutting techniques, its cost-cutting methods of trying to produce cars in this business. Electric cars are, in terms of worldwide passenger vehicle sales, especially if you look at the chart with fuel cell and electric and internal combustion engines, we see that electric cars almost take almost half of the share in all car use. That means this is a very prospective area to grow, and this is a it's going to be a very technologically driven business in the coming decades. But what is really maybe not so optimistic about Tesla company is the revenues parts of the business. You see that still today the majority, the overwhelming majority of revenues is still taken by traditional companies, and Tesla is just a little slice of global revenues. But the explanation is that it produces only maybe something like 500,000 cars a year, whereas Toyota and Volkswagen together produce almost 10 million cars each. So their revenues are certainly much larger. Also, I would like to talk a little bit about mergers and acquisitions in car making. Like I said, this industry is very aggressive. Everything changes here. Things change in the car industry very often, and many companies in the world are becoming part of large corporations, large conglomerates. For example, on January the 4th, a new company was created. Fiat Chrysler and PSA Group, which owns Citroën and Peugeot, decided to create a new conglomerate that's going to be called Stellantis, which is driven from the Latin word brightens with stars. So this new group is going to be company number 5 in terms of market capitalization, with something like $54 billion. But still, Toyota, Volkswagen, General Motors, and others are still the world leaders in that sort of industry. Volkswagen Group is the largest group in terms of the brand combination. It owns brands such as Porsche, Seat, Skoda, Lamborghini, Bugatti, Bentley, and so I think in total they've got 10 or 11 brands of very high value. So this company is not only Volkswagen of Germany, but this is a global sort of corporation that has assets and mergers and acquisitions with companies all across the world. We can find examples of that sort of activities in other companies, in other car-making companies. For example, BMW owns Rolls-Royce in Great Britain, it owns Mini in Great Britain, and it is the largest luxury car manufacturer in the world. And all those companies are trying to produce today electric cars because, like I said, this is the latest trend in the industry, and now any company that's going to neglect it is going to suffer high losses, is going to lose its market share in the world if it does not keep pace with companies such as Tesla. So Tesla became a sort of an accelerator in the trend, in the dynamics that was already coming into being in the early 2000s. When the global change became apparent, and the governments and the non-governmental organizations were very concerned about what's happening with Antarctica and the Arctic and other continents with ice. So the problem with ice melt led to that sort of activity, and electric car manufacturing is going to be one of the industry behind the decarbonization activities in the world. Of course, decarbonization is I don't think that decarbonization is going to lead to elimination of CO2 altogether. I think this is too optimistic a scenario to speak of. I think that it is impossible to decarbonize all the activities by 2050 like they want according to Paris Agreement. This is just unrealistic. For example, Germany, which is a country with lots of activities in green investments, with lots of ideas how to get away from nuclear power generation, from coal manufacturing facilities, from coal power stations. This is the leader, actually. Germany is the leader in terms of green technologies and in terms of climate change awareness. And it sets a goal that it's going to decarbonize all its activities by the year 2050. But there are people, scientists, who say that this is impossible even in Germany. The process of decarbonization in Germany was very easy in the 1990s and early 2000s because Germany just reunited, and very dirty enterprises in East Germany were closed down or just went bankrupt. or at least stopped working. So the level of CO2 emissions decreased dramatically, really due to this simple fact that these dirty enterprises stopped working. And Germany became one of the leaders in terms of decarbonization in Europe and the world. But today, it's becoming more and more difficult to keep pace with its goals. It set itself in the Paris Agreement, for instance, or other strategic documents, because there are no longer dirty enterprises to close down. And Germany also is a country with a very large manufacturing capacity. It's not the United States. In the United States economy, GDP is made by 70% of GDP, or even more than 70% of GDP in the United States is produced in the financial industry. In Germany, the manufacturing industry takes over 50% of the GDP. So for these countries, it's going to be much more difficult to get rid of the enterprises and to decarbonize its activities, because it would mean that it will have to close down enterprises such as Volkswagen, Daimler, BMW, and other car manufacturing companies. And I think this is not the question in this country. I don't think that this country is going to get rid of its car manufacturing, which is the one of the most successful industries in the world. And I don't think that they're going to really do that. So it's, of course, it's a very nice idea about the decarbonization, but it's certainly not very, it's a very unrealistic thing to do in these days of ours. And I think they will have to rethink their strategy in terms of decarbonizing their activities, maybe in the coming decades or in the coming years.